Hello and welcome to one and all. So in today's class, let's continue with the annual growth rates of national and per capita income during plans. In my previous class, I completed up to fifth 5-year plan. So let's continue with the sixth one. So 1980-81 to 1984-85. So this 1984-85, the growth rate was 5.4% and 3.1% in the national income. So it is satisfactory. For the first time, we were able to beat that record of Hindu growth rate, and for the first time, we crossed that 5% growth rate in the national income of the country. So all the employment programs, poverty alleviation programs were all being implemented in the country. Okay, and then next, moving to the next plan. Sixth 5-year plan. This one was fifth. Sorry, this is sixth 5-year plan. So whatever the program that was started in the fifth 5-year plan, mainly the employment programs. So they were all being implemented seriously during the sixth 5-year plan. Okay, and then next is the seventh 5-year plan. So seventh 5-year plan between 1985-86 to 1989-90. So this one, since Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated in 1984, Rajiv Gandhi became the Prime Minister. So the growth rate still increased 5.5%, and more employment generation programs were initiated in the country. Okay, and this one, the target of national income was 5% GNP, and per capita income was 3%. So this was the target fixed for the seventh plan, and so we achieved this target of 5% in after a long time. We achieved the target of 5% in GNP, and even the per capita income also we were able to achieve during the seventh 5-year plan. Okay, then moving on to the eighth plan. So eighth plan, again, it started in 1992-93 to 1996-97. There was a gap between 1990 and 92. Change of government one, and Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated in 1991. So again, that there was a gap between a 2-year break there, and finally the eighth plan was launched in 1992 under the Prime Ministership of Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, again the Congress government. Okay, so this one, the national income increased to 6.7% and per capita income was 4.5%. First time we reached the growth rate of 4% in per capita income. So this one, mainly because the government initiated something called, in 1991, the government initiated that economic reforms, the LPG model of growth, privatization, liberalization, and globalization. And so that's the reason there was a tremendous, first time we reached the 6% in NNP and 4% in the per capita income. So we were almost on the, broke so many barriers during this period of time. Because of that, the credit might be going to the economic reforms introduced by the government. Okay, then next, moving on to the ninth plan. So ninth plan, 1997-98 to 2001 and 2002. So this period, NNP, and there's a national income, same thing. So national income, it decreased slightly to 5.3%, and per capita income decreased slightly to 3.3%. This is mainly because of the slight adjustments of the economic reforms. So there was a drastic change in the economic system of the country. From the public sector dominated country to, we moved to the privatization. So more and more freedom were given to the private sector. So it would take some time for that adjustment. So maybe because of that slight adjustment of the economic reform, there's a slight decrease in both in the per capita income as well as the national income. Okay. Then moving on to the 10th plan. 10th plan again, 2002, 2003 to 2006, 7. So 7, it was 7.8% and 6.1%. So till now, this is the highest ever recorded, till 10th plan, highest ever recorded growth rate in the national income of the country. Okay, so it was very, and this one, per capita income, 6.1%. So we can mention that highest ever recorded growth rate in NNP so far. We crossed this also recently, but till then it was at 7.8% was the highest one. Okay, and then moving on to the 11th plan. So 11th plan between 2007-8 to 2011 and 2011-12. So this slight decrease, 7.6% and 6.2%. And then 12th plan. So this minor ups and downs is okay, unless it is major difference. This minor ups and downs is understandable. To 2015-16. So it was 8%. There's no data available for the per capita income. But of course, in the 12th plan also, the target fixed was 9%. And this achievement, it's between 7.6% to 8%. So this is the achievement. Okay. And then after the 12th plan, we don't have the 5-year plans here because the planning commission was replaced by Niti Aayog. Earlier, the plan 1950, the planning commission was appointed, which was supposed to be responsible for implementing the plans in the country. But in 1st Jan 2015, planning commission was replaced by Niti Aayog, and we are no longer having the 5-year plan. Now we are having the 5-year plan only for defense. 5-year defense plans are only made now, not like the earlier one, which was made by the planning commission. Okay. So the conclusions are, if you see the last 22 years. So last 22 years in the sense between 1991-92 to 2012-13. So the growth rates are high. Especially in per capita income. So it was 4.7% per annum. That was the growth rate of average per capita income increase, compared to it was only 2.3% per annum in 4 decades earlier. Okay, that is between 1951 to 1991. Okay, so this is the trends in the growth rate of both the per capita income and the national income. See, if you are drawing a graph, you'll be able to understand more clearly. See, for example, we can easily find out the ups and downs. Okay, x-axis plan period and y-axis the growth rates of national income and per capita income. So let us make it. I'm just drawing roughly so that the idea will get a better idea if we are representing diagrammatically. Okay. So first plan, second, third, 10, 11, and 12. Okay. So first start with the national income. First 4.4%, then decrease to 3.8%, then still decrease to 2.6%, then again move to 3.1%, then became 4.9%, then 5.4%, 5.5%, 6.7%, and again decrease to 5.3, then became 7.8, decrease 7.6, finally it is 8%. So if you join this, you will find out the trend in the growth rate of. So this is the growth rate in the national income of the country. Okay, the same thing. Check out the per capita income. It was 2.6%, then became 1.7%, then so low as 0.4%, 0.8, and then became 2.6, 3.1, 3.3, 4.5, again 3.3, then became 6.1, 6.2, and that's it. So you can see in the third plan how much the economy plunged because of all those war and economic crisis in the country. So this is the trends in the growth rate of per capita income. So if you draw a graph like that, I mean, the understanding will be better. Okay, so which period it plunged down. So you will know exactly that what happened with the growth rates in the national income of the country. So this is the trends in the growth rates of national income and per capita income plan wise. Okay, so this is about the growth rate. The next topic we'll move on to the what is the sectoral contribution to national income. Sectoral contribution to national income. Just like we had the occupational distribution of population, isn't it? In the same way, sectoral contribution is the contribution made by each different sectors to the national income of the country. That is the primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. So whatever the contribution made by the three different sectors to the national income, to the GNP of the country, that is what is known as the sectoral contribution to national income. Okay, so the meaning is the contribution made by different sectors, that is primary, secondary, and the tertiary sectors to the national income. So this is what is known as the sectoral contribution to the national income. And one of the advantage of knowing about the sectoral contribution of national income is we will clearly know which sector is dominating. If the contribution made by the primary sector is more, then we know that we have seen from the first topic, isn't it? The contribution is primary sector is more to the national income, automatically that country is still an underdeveloped country. That country is still in the process of development. Whereas if the contribution made by the secondary and tertiary sectors are more, then automatically it says that that country happens to be a developed country. So there should be a smooth process from the primary sector. Initially, every country, the primary sector will dominate. So from the primary sector, it should move on to the secondary, and then further, finally, it should move on to the tertiary. That doesn't mean that the other two sectors are decreasing. It is not like that. Only thing is the relative share of tertiary sector will be more compared to the contribution made by the primary sector and the secondary sector. Okay, so this is the transition. So this indicates the developmental stages of each and every country. Okay, and let us check out what is the sectoral contribution of India. Okay, so in the form of a table. So industry group, so here primary sector, I already explained to you, mentioned what are all the areas that are covered under the primary sector, what are all the areas covered under secondary, and what are all the areas covered under tertiary. Okay, same thing. When I was explaining the occupational distribution of population, secondary sector, and finally tertiary sector. So 1950-51, the contribution made by primary sector was 57.2%. Secondary sector 14.8%. See, these are all some of the data you are expected to remember. Okay. 1991, it decreased to 33.2%. This one slightly, secondary sector slightly increased to 25.9%, and tertiary sector increased to 40.9%. And finally, let us take the recent one, 2018-19. So it is further decreased to 16.1%, whereas secondary sector slightly increased, not that much, 29.6%, whereas tertiary sector 54.3%. Okay, so this is the growth trends of the or the sectoral contribution in the national income of the country. Okay, so let us detailedly check out what was happening in each and every sector. Okay, so first let us take the what happened to the contribution of the primary sector. So we already know that what are all the components of primary sector, isn't it? It's agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, fishery, horticulture, they all come under the category of primary sector. So first thing what we have finding out, the contribution of primary sector declined from same data which are mentioned in the table, we are writing in words also. Declined from 57.2% in 1950-51 to 16.1% in 2018-19. Okay. Now, the main reason for the decline in the primary sector, of course, we will be so happy to say that because of the structural transformation, this is happening, but then it is not 100% true. Only one part of the reason is because of the structural transformation. The other part is because of the agricultural itself is not growing properly. Because of the unfavorable weather conditions, the production in agriculture was dwindling down. Okay, so only one part, the structural transformation. That is a good thing, but then it is not entirely true. So the main causes for the decline in the share of primary sector or you can mention first one, unfortunately, unfavorable weather conditions, and the second reason due to structural transformation happening in the country. So especially the areas of banking, insurance, trade, they all gained more importance. The contribution made by those sectors improved compared to the other sector. So structural transformation in the country. So this is the this was happening in the primary sector. Okay, now let's check out what was the condition in the secondary sector. So second one, contribution of the secondary sector. So secondary sector, all the manufacturing industries, both small scale, large scale, electricity, gas, water supply, construction, they all come under the secondary sector. So what did we find out? The share increased from, so if you check the data, 14.8% or you can mention 15% in 1950-51 to 29.6% in 2018-19. So first thing we have done, the share has increased. Okay, and out of this total increase, there are two major components share increase in the secondary sector. One is the share of manufacturing of all the components. These are all the shares. The share of manufacturing industries increased. So the main contribution, if you can remember the data from 9% in 1950-51 to almost 15%. And the next, the share of construction. So the share of construction also increased. So it was 4.4% in 1950-51, which has increased to around 7.5%. So if you can remember this data, or otherwise just because of these two components of the secondary sector, there was this increase 14.8% to 29.6%. Okay, now let's move on to the third one, contribution of tertiary sector. So it is the sector which contribute significantly nowadays to the national income of the country. Okay, so it has increased from the data we can find out that it has increased from 25% in 1950-51 to more than half the percentage of the national income of the country is being contributed by tertiary sector, 54.3% in 2018-19. So out of this, the tertiary sector, the major contribution from this sector is trade, transport, storage, and another major contributor of the tertiary sector is the community and personal services, or the major sectors that contributed to the, what do you say, to the growth rate or share of tertiary sector in the GDP. So this is what we are finding on from the sectoral contribution to the national income. Okay, now what is the conclusion here? So before I put the conclusion, the same, so these, as I mentioned, these data you're supposed to remember. So try to make it in the form of a graph, so you will be able to remember better, and the presentation will also be better. Let us make a bar diagram of sectoral contribution to national income. So let us take the first year and last year. So 1950-51 and 2018 and 19. So let's make it 25, 50, 75, 100. So in 1950-51, you know the primary sector contribution was, so let's mark it here. Somewhere around 57. This is the primary sector, isn't it? So primary sector contribution was 57.2%. Then we had the secondary sector, which is somewhere around secondary sector 14.8%. And then the tertiary sector, no, 25%. So it should be like this, somewhere around here, isn't it? So tertiary sector 25%. And moving on to 2018-19, what happened? The tertiary primary sector contribution was only, it decreased to 16%. So let me use the same pen. So if you make a record of this, like a diagram and all, it will be easy for you to remember. You will understand it better, and also the presentation will also be better. And tertiary sector, it was almost like 54%. So tertiary sector 54%, and in between we are having the secondary sector. So secondary sector, it was 29.6%. Okay, so you can see the changes in tertiary sector, isn't it? It was only 25% in 1950-51, which increased to almost 54% in 2018-19. Whereas you can see the decrease in the primary sector. And what you can, for finding out, see, when you compare the secondary sector, there is not much of a change. I mean, there is an increase, but then when you compare the decrease in the primary sector and you compare the increase in the tertiary sector, you can see this gap is less, isn't it? So this is the conclusion. So what is the conclusion? Even though we keep on saying that there should be a structural transformation, countries should move from primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary, India has bypassed, India has bypassed the secondary sector. I mean, the process should be continuous. First primary sector, then the secondary sector, and then the tertiary sector. But as far as India is concerned, India bypassed the secondary sector. I mean, what is that mean? From primary sector, directly it switched on to the tertiary sector. So, which is not a very good sign. It is not a very good sign in the sense that it is only the secondary sector is the foundation for an economy. Industries are giving the foundation for an economy. So if you are neglecting the industries, for example, you are constructing a house, you are constructing a building without strong foundation, what will happen? Anytime it will collapse, isn't it? That is this is the same thing. So without giving importance to secondary sector, the country directly switches over to the tertiary sector. It is like a building collapsing. Anytime it will collapse, because the tertiary sector is prone to business cycles, it's prone to business fluctuations. So that's what happened in our country. We did not lay a strong foundation of industries, but we directly moved to the tertiary sector. But anyway, still it's a good sign that tertiary sector is contributing more and the share of primary sector has decreased. But having said that, even today, if there is any problem in the agricultural sector, immediately that will show in the national income of a country. So even though the share of tertiary sector has increased, India is still depending upon the agricultural sector. India is still an agricultural country. Okay. So that is the sectoral contribution of national income. Hope all of you understood. So with this, the sectoral contribution is concluded. Okay, just one more topic left in this share of public and private sector. Then we will move on to income inequalities and unemployment, poverty, etc., which I will take in the next class. Okay, so if you find this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any doubts or suggestions, please mention in the comment box. So until my next class, next video, take care. Bye-bye.